That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Reality radio for a really great future. We're talking real money.
Hello again. I'm Don McDonald. Welcome to the podcast. Glad you could tune in. Today, we're going to do a little Q&A day because we've piled up several questions at the website that people send in via the contact form at talkingrealmoney.com, plus one phone call to 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. And also, coming up this Saturday, you can call the show live for 2 hours, 2 full hours, I believe. No football preemptions. You can call live on Saturday from 3 until 5 p.m. Eastern at 855-935-TALK. That's noon to 2 Pacific. I'll be there. Tom's still on vacation, and then he'll be back the weekend after Thanksgiving. So give me a call, 855-935-TALK, anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or send us a question at talkingrealmoney.com. Now, we got several of the questions submitted on our form, so I'm going to do a couple of those first, and then I'll get a phone call and then one more question. So we'll get a lot out of the way today. Let's start with this one. The New York Times finished a recent retirement series with the following piece, and he sent me a link. It was a 7-day plan for retirement. Now, I did not read it because it was a weird article. It wasn't an article that you could read. You had to get an email and then act on the email every day. So I never did it. I didn't read it. I really thought it was kind of gimmicky, but I'm happy if it's helpful because anything that helps is in my opinion, terrific. But this question says, some of the links and references seem good, but what about robo advisors? So I assume they brought up robo advisors in the article. Now, robo advisors are really more like automated portfolio creation programs. They are all very different, one from another, but basically what they do is they try to build a portfolio that's right for you based on your risk tolerance, and then many of them do some sort of rebalancing along the way. What you don't get is the one factor that probably sets personalized, real-life human advice apart from all the online stuff. As a matter of fact, Vanguard said in their study on the added value of advisors that the one thing that added the most value was the emotional support. And computers aren't good at providing emotional support just yet. They might be someday, but they're not there yet, which is why human advisors, in my opinion, have an advantage over robo-advisors. That said, even a robo-advisor can add value because they get the portfolio right, or they have the chance to get the portfolio right if you're dealing with some of those that use the same sort of scientific approach that we believe in. And they can do it at a reasonable cost. There's still a cost associated with it. In many cases, that cost is up to about 0.5% or so. But bear in mind, you can get a fee-only human advisor for 0.9% or less, at least our firm, or 1% or less with most every other firm. So I think there are advantages to humans, but the robos can be very helpful. And for a small investor, the robos are terrific. 855-935-TALK or go to talkingrealmoney.com to ask your questions. And let's do one more. I think this one. It's about asset allocation. If I've researched the 4% withdrawal rate correctly, it's based on an asset allocation of 50% stocks and 50% bonds. If I plan to retire when I'm 67, my current FRA, full retirement age, and plan to follow another popular rule on asset allocation that states that, quote, bonds should be equal to your age, The math doesn't work out when applied to the 50-50 rule for the 4% withdrawal rate. There is a conceptual conflict between these two rules. Which one should override the other when I retire at 67? Signed, Confused. I can understand why you're confused, but your confusion relates to a mistake you're making, and that is believing that there's a rule. There is no rule. The 4% rule is based on past performance, but past performance isn't necessarily indicative of anything. And it's not necessarily a 50-50 portfolio. It can be a 60-40 or a 40-60, and we've run all kinds of scenarios in which it works quite well. 4% per year plus inflation. But there are other options, too. I'm not a big fan of bonds should equal your age, because I don't think that age has as much to do with risk tolerance as many seem to think. I know a lot of people, because they have a lot of experience, who are really comfortable taking risk and are really old. I know a lot of people who are very young and could be taking lots of risk, but it scares the living daylights out of them because they don't have the seasoning that goes with having been an investor for a while. So you need to invest for a couple of things. One, your risk tolerance, sure. Go find that out. Take our risk quiz at talkingrealmoney.com. Also, your need to take risk. How much risk do you need to take to get the money you need to live? What you need to do is sit down and figure out what your needs are financially, and then try to build a withdrawal strategy based on that, and a portfolio from which that withdrawal strategy will be taken based on that risk, need, and tolerance. But don't take any of these as absolutes. They are guidelines. It's a little bit of a direction. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've found that I like best is a flexible withdrawal, where you take, for example, 5% of the portfolio value at the beginning of each year, and you live on that for the next year. You don't touch your portfolio. It has great history when we've run all kinds of randomized tests. So there are many ways to go. None of them are absolute, and you can't have absolute rules about the future because the future is totally unknown. Again, our number is 855-935-TALK. You can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or you can call me on Saturday when I'll be taking calls live from 3 until 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 to 5 Pacific, 855-935-TALK. And up next is a called-in question.
Sure do appreciate your show. Several weeks ago, or maybe several months ago, you gave the advice to invest in two things: an international bond fund and an international equity fund. I invested in the bond fund. By the way, I'm just recently retired about 6 weeks ago. But I might have copied it down wrong, but the international equity fund or stock fund that you gave, Fidelity is telling me that that's not open for personal investing, only to large investment groups and so forth. So I'm wondering what that international stock fund was, the ticker symbol is. Thanks for all your advice. I really appreciate your help. Bye-bye.
Wow. I don't recall ever suggesting or recommending international bond funds. I'm not a big proponent of international bond funds. I guess I might have said something about them that could have been misconstrued, but I don't know what that is. Maybe I'm getting old, but I don't think so. I am not a big fan of international bond funds. I mean, we often suggest a two-fund solution, but that two-fund solution is the Vanguard Total World Stock Index Fund, which is U.S. and international, and the Vanguard Total Bond Market Index, which is all U.S. So I don't recall having recommended or even suggested international bond funds, nor a particular Fidelity International fund, at least not one that comes to mind. I'm confident that both Fidelity and Vanguard have international stock funds. Vanguard has an international stock index, and we do believe in international investing, but I'm drawing a blank. So my suggestion is if you're looking for a two-fund solution, if you already have U.S. stocks and U.S. bonds, great. I wouldn't bother with international bonds. If you have a U.S. stock and a U.S. bond fund, then get yourself an international index fund from whichever source that is, whether it's Fidelity or Vanguard. I'm sure they're going to be of similar quality. And if you have more information, give us a call and share it. 855-935-TALK. If you have a question, give us a call and ask it. 855-935-8255. It's really easy, and we try to answer all your questions on the podcast if you call and leave them. Otherwise, you can call live on Saturdays between 3 and 5 Eastern Time, 855-935-TALK. Here we go. Last question about fiduciary pressures. I liked this one. Thanks so much for all your work on behalf of investors. I listen to every podcast. I wanted to share a recent video I came across from Fidelity Institutional for advisors. I will post the link here, but included in the page is a video in which Fidelity describes the many challenges advisors face. And I looked at the video. I watched the video. It doesn't make any sense for me to play any of the audio because it's just music and pictures and words. But one of the things that comes across the screen, as he says, one of them is, quote, fiduciary pressure. I'm not sure what they intended to mean by that, but the first thought that came to mind is that they consider always acting in the client's best interest to be a pressure rather than simply the right thing to do. It's a dangerous investing world out there. Buyer beware. Thanks again for all you both do. I thought the same thing. And it probably is true. Fidelity is pushing their services to help alleviate that fiduciary pressure. Suddenly, the word fiduciary is in the vernacular. It wasn't when I was a stockbroker. I never heard the word used in relation to the investment industry, probably because when I was in the business in the mid-'80s, there weren't any fiduciary advisors. Yeah, there are always going to be conflicts of interest, but you need to find and work with someone who will put their interests ahead of yours. That's it. That's what a fiduciary does. And a true fiduciary, to my mind, always puts your interests ahead of theirs. That means simple little things like, for example, let's say you have a really great retirement plan at work. Let's say you have the government plan, the TSP. A fiduciary advisor would probably tell you, should tell you in most every case, except for some rare exceptions, that your TSP is a wonderful retirement vehicle, and no, do not move the money over to us so that we can charge you a fee. Less scrupulous advisors will say, well, I can do lots of cool things for you. A good advisor is going to say, I can help you deal with that as part of your portfolio, and you don't have to pay me to manage that. A good advisor doesn't sell you any products with commissions hidden or otherwise. And there is some conflict in the industry. There are a lot of advisors who are just kind of now learning, kind of being forced to learn about acting in the client's best interest. It's hard for them because it's been a very lucrative business for them. Ridiculously lucrative in most cases. And bear that in mind. Bear that in mind when you go to deal with an investment advice firm of some kind. If they take you out to an expensive steak and lobster dinner at the nicest restaurant in town, and their walls are paneled in mahogany and everything is leather and fine fabrics and fancy lighting and $100,000 conference tables and all of the rigmarole and the nice suits, and they drive expensive cars. Remember who pays for all that? You. Everybody's entitled to make a living, but you are picking up most of the tab, and you need to be aware of it. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. If you get a chance, please tell friends. Subscribe at Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast service, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for being there. I'm Don McDonald.
Talking Real Money. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for educational and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. Providing personalized financial planning or investing advice takes time, so please consult with a really good fee-only fiduciary investment, tax, or legal advisor. We know a good one. Investing must always involve risk. In other words, you can and probably will lose money at times. Also, as much as you want it, no one can accurately, consistently predict the future. So past performance doesn't tell you a darn thing about what the future will bring. Unlike many other programs that say something similar, Talking Real Money is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Vestry, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and disclosures. That should keep the lawyers happy.